Void Miner, Ashes of Helix, Part 3, Chapter 19, Long Shadows. The Dust Widow lifted away from the relay tower on silent thrust, her burn profile cool and flat, engines throttled low to avoid detection. The tower drifted behind them, shrinking in the viewport, its shape a jagged needle against the stars. Arg watched it until it disappeared. Then he turned away. He stripped off his suit piece by piece, gloves first, then helmet, setting them on the crate by the bulkhead. Kara sat across the cabin, cross-legged, a datapad in her hands. She hadn't said much since they'd powered down the tower's core, but she hadn't stopped reading. A copy of the seed-line pulse they'd trapped now lived in the Widow's secured storage array, segment-locked, triple-buffered, and air-gapped from the nav core. Arg didn't like having it aboard, but he liked not having it worse. He leaned against the inner wall of the cockpit, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "That thing's been waiting a long time." Kara didn't look up. "Longer than we know. Maybe longer than we've been." "Helix knew." "They knew something, but not what it meant." Arg stepped forward, watching her screen. The waveform pulses still played in compressed, format oscillating patterns, slowly resolving into recursive logic spirals. "What do you see?" he asked. Kara tapped the display. "These loops, if you isolate them, aren't just data. They're behavioral cues, structured to mimic response. I think it's designed to learn from whoever interacts with it." Art grunted. "Adaptive." "And reflexive. It doesn't just mirror us. It evolves based on our reaction." "Great," Arg muttered. "We woke up something that studies back." Kara finally looked up. Her face was pale, drawn tight now. The kind of tired you don't sleep off. "Whatever it is, it's already linked Chloe and that tower. It's trying to complete its structure." Arg crossed to the comm panel. He keyed in a private channel. "Channel 77X, encryption log active. Destination, Silas Rel, roaming." The console blinked, then again, then held. No ping back. "Dead channel," Arg said. Kara stood slowly. "Try the station override. He always runs a backtrace code." Arg narrowed the signal band, restructured the handshake, and added the override Kara suggested. An old Station 8 protocol he'd seen once during the collapse. "If this channel's still warm, we've still got a belt to save." The screen chirped. "Ping acknowledged. Response, stand by." Arg stepped back. Kara stared. "He's alive." "Yeah," Arg muttered, "but quiet." The channel held on standby. No voice. Just an encrypted bounce relay waiting for clearance. Arg didn't push. Not yet. He moved to the viewport and stared out at the black. The silence of the belt never bothered him before, but now it felt watched. "Kara," he said without turning, "why didn't Chloe ever speak about this? The deeper signal, the seed line. If he was involved, if he knew." She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Because even he was afraid of what it meant. He said the list was only one piece, that Helix wasn't building a weapon." Arg turned. "What are they building?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "A mirror." Arg felt something cold twist down his spine. Kara walked over and handed him the pad. "Rel's going to call, and when he does, he'll ask if we've seen the pulse." "And what do we tell him?" Kara looked him straight in the eye. "And we didn't find a message." She paused. "We found a blueprint." Chapter 20. Signal returned. Silas Rel didn't fly fast. He flew quiet. The small cutter he salvaged from the drift belt didn't have a name. It barely had a nav board. But it had stealth mesh stitched into its outer hull, a low-sig burn chamber, and a passive array that could listen to half the system without ever announcing itself. It was the kind of vessel you flew when you didn't want anyone, not Helix, not Union, not even friendly captains, to know you were moving. He sat in the darkened cockpit now, hands motionless, eyes tracking the slow pulse of filtered signal. His message queue had blinked twice. Acknowledgement, then standby. Encrypted bounce from channel 77X. Arg had heard it. Row closed the loop. 2. Arg Arston. Channel. Secure. I-line 77X. I read you. Data confirms. I've seen the third point. Not a person, a place. I believe Chloe was first. You were second. Now it's building the frame. There's a shape inside the loop. Recursive logic. A framework built to accept something else. Whatever we thought this was, it's not software. It's not control. It's hosting. We're not the audience. We're the infrastructure. Rel. He didn't sign his name often. When he did, it meant it was real. The message sent, he leaned back and let the ship drift another half-kilometer into the debris field. The rock formations here, burned slag and frozen gas spires, had once formed part of a Helix mining station that had self-destructed during the resource collapse. That was the story anyway. No record of a distress call, no traceable incident report, just wreckage. He was sure now it had been deliberate. Helix had erased something here. And if the signal was triangulating like he thought, this was the third node. He moved carefully, cycling through infrared. Nothing. Then something. A warm spot beneath the ice field. Geometric, not natural. He marked it, logged it, and did not approach. Not yet. Instead, he keyed in a separate entry into his private logbook. He used code layered through 3 ciphers only 2 people alive would recognize. Then, as the ship coasted into shadow, he leaned forward. Play black the close segment, the ship complied. Chloe's garbled voice rasped through the audio, fragmented, decayed, but still unmistakable. They don't want us to know where it goes. That's the joke. We thought it was outbound. It's not. It's inbound. The signal wasn't sent. It was received. Rel's eyes stayed locked on the dark. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just listened. Then in a tone flat and final. Arg, if you're hearing this, don't activate anything else, not until I reach you. He killed the loop, locked the nav, and set a course for the Dust Widow. Chapter 21. The Breach in the Room. Union Station Thalos, red hung in fixed orbit above Belt Sector 2, a fortified shell of steel and radiation shielding, its interior wrapped in insulation and arrogance. Once a central logistics hub for Helix's early expansion, it had been nationalized after the collapse, though more than a few old company hands still lingered in its upper tiers. The council chamber was not built for debate. It was built for orders. Admiral Revar Kane stood at the long edge of the central table, his frame tall, sharp-shouldered, and graying at the temples in a way that suggested dignity rather than decay. He wore his Union badge like it had weight. Before him, a projection screen showing a pulsing signal waveform. You're telling me, he said slowly, this is real? No one spoke at first. Then Deputy Overseer Ilson Tay cleared her throat. Recovered from a belt relay in Sector 19. 2 nodes in place. The third was activated somewhere past Ort. Location unconfirmed, but the structure is intact. It's not encrypted in Helix code. Then who built it? Tay hesitated. That's the problem. It builds itself. Kane turned towards the projection. The waveform had smoothed into a pattern, an elegant spiral of pulse and return, logic folding inside logic. Is it artificial intelligence? Tay shook her head. Not exactly. It's pre-logic, pre-syntax. It doesn't process in human terms. The current theory is that it was meant to be received by Helix systems, but it was never written by one. The signal mimics understanding. It mirrors what it reads. Kane crossed his arms. Who has access to this? Fragments have leaked. A former Helix contractor, Chloe, may have initiated the second node without clearance. We believe 2 others have copies. She paused. Arg Arston and Silas Rel. Kane blinked slowly. The asteroid miner? Tay nodded. He was at the relay. He copied the pulse, possibly stabilized it. Rail's trail is colder, but he appears to have been tracking sea line theory since before the war ended. Kane turned back to the signal display. The spiral had stopped looping. Now it blinked. 3 times. Slowly. Then the screen cut to black. "Shut that off," Kane muttered. Tay complied. He looked around the table. 8 faces, all hardened by the war. Most too tired to admit it. They weren't clean uniforms, but all of them had blood under their nails, diplomatic or otherwise. Kane spoke with precision. "Clothes dead?" "Yes." "Relay tower?" "Power down, systems offline. We don't believe they made full contact." "Then we're going to make sure they don't." He pointed at the black screen. "That is not Union technology. That is an unknown architecture designed to interface with us and likely overwrite what it finds. Whether that's code, thought, or command hierarchy, I don't care." Tay leaned in. "Sir, if it's preset in it and reactive, then wiping it may not—" "We're not wiping it," Kane said coldly. "We're capturing it." That froze the room. Kane looked at each officer in the eye. "Helix may have fallen, but their reach was longer than ours. If they mapped something out there, if they touched it, then we need to know what it is before the belt weaponizes it." One officer finally spoke. "And Arston?" Kane's voice didn't change. "Bring him in." He turned toward Tay. "Alive if you can manage it, but not at the cost of the data." Chapter 22. Holt's Orders. The interceptor craft, Copper Veil, wasn't much to look at. Sleek, fast, and lean on luxuries. She was all thrusters and sensors, no comfort. She had 1 bunk, 1 galley module, and a cockpit barely large enough for her pilot to stretch his legs. Lieutenant Varen Holt didn't mind. He'd been flying since the belt was still bleeding from the Helix split. Born on a spin ring over Vesta, Holt had grown up ducking radiation drills and food shortages. He'd signed up with the Union not out of pride, but because the pay was good and it got his family out of the red. He didn't wear medals. He didn't ask for them. And he never once believed the war had ended. He sat now in the Veil's cockpit, watching the long-range ping update across the nav grid. The target signature, Dust Widow, was moving in a slow drift arc, almost casual. Not hiding, not announcing, just floating. Classic Arston. The man never ran fast, only deep. Holt adjusted his sensors and pulled up the mission profile again. Target, Arston A, ARG. Destination, Civilian, Class B. Status, non-compliant possession of restricted comm scene line data. Objective, detain and transfer to Union Command, Thalos Red. Clearance, lethal force authorized only if resistance compromises data integrity. Holt leaned back, jaw tight. He'd watched the vids. Hell, he'd grown up on the Void Miner logs. Ark's voice had been part of the belt soundscape back when things were dark. Calm, firm, stripped of nonsense. A man with his ship and nothing else, carving ore out of the black and somehow managing to hold it all together. Arg had never led an army, never asked for a following. Yet people listened. Now the Union called him a problem. Holt tapped his display, opening a private log. His own thoughts. Unsent. Just memory. "They say he has something dangerous. I think it's not what he has they're afraid of. I think it's what he'll say when he realizes what it means." He deleted the log a second after finishing it, then keyed open his outboard signal. 2. Dust Widow. From Union Lieutenant V. Holt. Status, friendly. "This is Lieutenant Holt, Interceptor Copper Veil. I have orders to bring you in. I'm not firing. I'm opening a channel. You respond, we talk. You run? Well, that's not the story I want to write." He sent it. Locked comms. Waited. 10 seconds passed. 20. Then, ping. The Dust Widow responded with a standard handshake. Unarmed, open broadcast. Arg was listening. Holt smiled to himself. This man, he muttered, always knows when someone's just doing their job. He reached for the manual control yoke. If the Union thought he was just about to drag a legend in without hearing the full story, they'd forgotten who raised him. Chapter 23. The Line Between Men. The Dust Widow held station against the drift, her thrusters idling, her hull shadows barely distinguishable from the deep black behind her. Arg stood at the helm, arms crossed, silent as the comm blinked with its inbound signal. Copper Veil, Union issue, patrol-grade interceptor. He knew the class. Fast, sharp sensors, built for takedown, not diplomacy. And yet, no lock, no demand, no parked Union hail. Just a voice. Arg played the message again. This is Lieutenant Holt, Interceptor Copper Veil. I have orders to bring you in. I'm not firing. I'm opening a channel. You respond, we talk. You run? Well, that's not the story I want to write. Arg stared at the waveform. Clean tone. No threat in the deliveries. No smugness either. He looked over at Kara, seated near the comm bank. She raised one eyebrow. Friend or trap? Arg gave the faintest shrug. We'll see. He keyed the transmission channel open, voice steady. Copper Veil, this is Dust Widow. I read you. If you come to collect me, we've got problems. If you came to talk, say your piece. There was a pause. Then Holt's voice came through, clear, direct. I don't know you, Arston, but I remember you. My father used to watch your logs back when the power cut out more than it stayed on. You kept him sane some nights. I'm not here to sell you out. I've seen what they sent me, and I think something's wrong. All I ask is 5 minutes. Arg narrowed his eyes. He glanced at Kara. She tapped her screen once. No active weapon lock from the Veil. No magnetic interference. Bring him aboard, she said quietly. If it goes wrong, I'll space the bay. Arg keyed in the hangar unlock. Copy that, Lieutenant Holden. You've got 5. The Copper Veil touched down like a whisper. Arg met Holt in the cargo bay. The pilot stepped through the hatch with his hands up, unarmed, helmet under one arm. He was lean, tan, and older than Arg expected. Late 30s, maybe, with the quiet eyes of a man who's seen both sides of a line and never fully stood on either. Arg nodded once. Didn't think they'd sent the respectful ones anymore. Holt shrugged. Didn't think they'd listen to miners anymore. They stood a few paces apart. Not tense, just careful. I read the scene line logs, Holt said. Well, you pulled from that tower. What Chloe left behind? Arg's jaws tightened. Then you know what we're standing in. I know it's not just data, Holt said. And I know it wasn't made by us. Arg studied him for a beat. You're Union. Born Beltside, station ring on Vesta. My father mined until his lungs turned to glass. Union paid to bury him, so I signed up. You believe in their mission? I believe in people, he said quietly. The ones trying to hold the belt together, not the ones rewriting history to fit a clean report. Arg exhaled through his nose. You came to bring me in, Holt nodded. I did, but not for them. For who, then? Holt met his eyes. For us. That hung between them a long moment. Then Arg turned and walked towards the central corridor. Come see what we found, he said. I'm not handing it over, he added without turning. Holt followed. I wouldn't ask you to. They passed into the ship's core, the home of her system steady and low. Kara stood as they entered, arms folded. She didn't offer her name, didn't offer her trust. Arg tapped the console. The scene line project flared to life again. Spirals of logic, recursive signals stacked like scaffolding. Holt stared. He said only one thing. This isn't a broadcast. Arg nodded. Nope, he said. It's a construction plan. Chapter 24. fragments in the flame. The map hung like a web in the air, suspended from the Dust Widow's hollow core. The scene-line projection spun slowly in all directions, a lattice of logic spirals and nested circuits that shifted when viewed from different angles. No matter where you stood, it looked incomplete, because it was. 3 points blinked in slow succession. NBK, TAC 07A, Clo, terminated. Relay 19, active echo. Node unknown, searching. Kara moved along the edge of the projection, using 2 fingers to rotate the map. Her expression was all calculation, her mind moving ahead of the moment. "This isn't data anymore," she said. "It's structure. It's building towards a central convergence." Ark stood with arms crossed. "I've seen drift ice stabilize faster than this." Holtz, seated nearby, was still studying the relay logs. He scrolled through a sequence Chloe had left hidden beneath multiple layer codes, a line of recursive entries dated weeks apart. "He wasn't just monitoring the signal," Holtz said. "He was feeding it." Kara looked up. "Chloe?" "Yeah, embedded subroutines, interface language. Each time the echo returned, he wrote countercode, responses shaped to keep the loop running." Ark frowned. "Why?" Holtz's voice lowered. "Because he wanted it to see him." That hit harder than expected. Ark turned away from the projection, eyes narrowing toward the black void outside the viewport. "He gave up his own mind for this?" "No," Kara said quietly. "He gave up his mind to bring it in." Ark turned back to face her. "You're saying this thing's not from Helix?" Kara shook her head. "Helix didn't invent it. They just found the pattern, started matching signals. They didn't even know what it was yet. They just wanted it to want them back." Silence filled the cabin. For the first time since it began, the implications pressed in around them like hull stress. This wasn't about war, or profit, or power. It was about invitation. And the belt had answered. Ark stepped forward and pointed it at the map. "What happens if it finds the third point?" Kara answered immediately. "It stabilizes." "And then?" Holt's voice came next. "Then it moves." Ark looked at him. Holt clarified. "Not physically, not in ships. In logic, in form. A system like this doesn't travel in steel. It travels in systems, in thoughts, in commands. You activate the full triangle, and it doesn't have to come through. It's already here. It just needs the scaffolding." Ark turned to the console and keyed in his deep backup, one of the earlier fragments from the relay tower before the signal self-throttled, an older build, less refined. Kara noticed. "You think the old code might have a fail marker?" "Something Chloe left in," Ark muttered. "A warning, or a kill switch." They let it play. The waveform unspooled slowly, flickers of broken audio, then a whisper, almost unintelligible, but they heard it. A voice, male, flat, not Chloe. "Third node identified, identity confirmed. Mirror prepared, begin phase 2. Kara stepped back. "It's already triggered." Ark's mouth tightened. He turned to Holt. "You've got a choice." "I know. I'm not going to the Union. Not now. Not ever. And if they try to bring this thing under their flag, they'll burn every station between here and the edge doing it." "I said I wasn't here for them," Holt replied. "And I meant it." Kara crossed her arms. "Then we move." "Where?" Ark's voice was quiet. "We follow the signal till its end. Not to stop it, yet. Just to see." Holt nodded once. "I'll fly with you." The air in the cabin felt heavier. No one smiled. No one said thank you. They didn't have time for ceremony. Only action. Ark reached for the nav key and pulled up the coordinates from the last pulse. Chloe's hidden cache. The location beyond the Oort shell. Cold and dead. Waiting. He locked it in. The Dust Widow's engines hummed low. Gravity pulled slightly as the ship turned. 3 people aboard. 1 signal ahead. And something else waiting for them. Chapter 25. The One Who Stayed. The ice field stretched for nearly 2 kilometers in every direction. Jagged shelves of methane-crusted stone, broken only by thin plumes of vapor, rising slowly from the vents below. No sun touched this place. The stars overhead were distant and cold, and the Oort line long since passed. Beneath the surface, embedded in a crumpled mining husk, lay station MBK Tech 07A. It was not on any registry. It hadn't transmitted 23 years, and yet it lived. Deep within the station's core module, a man sat at a narrow metal desk, lit only by the pale blue glow of his monitor wall. The screens hissed with static. The air was stale. Oxygen was recycled through pre-fall tanks older than most ships. He wore a threadbare Helix uniform, sleeves rolled up to the elbow. A patch on his chest faded to illegibility. His name, once, had been Dr. Niall Tessian, but no one had spoken it aloud in over a decade. He hadn't received orders in 14 years. He had never left. Some caretakers left their post after Helix collapsed. Others were killed when comms failed and environmental controls failed faster. Tessian simply stayed. He didn't know why. Not anymore. Maybe loyalty, maybe madness, maybe the signal. He watched it now, same as he had for years. The pulse, the loop, the pattern that never quite repeated the same way twice. He'd mapped it, memorized it, spoken to it in whispers when the cold got inside his bones. He never told it what he was, but it answered anyway. Today, something changed. A flicker, a new node signature. He leaned in close, pupils constricting. Node, relay 19 synchronized. Node, unknown. Vector lock confirmed. Structural integrity, 91%. Cycle initiated. Tessian sat back. For the first time in 17 years, the structure moved on to Phase 2. He reached for the emergency override switch. It had never worked before. It wasn't even wired to anything anymore, but his hands hovered there anyway. He did not press it. Instead, he stood, slowly, joints creaking, and walked to the viewport. Outside, the surface was silent. No ships, no engines, just frost and dark. Then faintly, something shivered above the horizon. A light, not from a vessel, not artificial, just geometry. A structure forming where there had only been space. He closed his eyes and whispered, "You were never calling to us. You were calling through us." He reached into the locker beneath the main station frame and pulled out a sealed Helix drive. It bore the oldest symbol, not the corporate icon, but the one before it, the spiral etched in brass. He slid it into the console. The system accepted it immediately. Directive, standby complete. Phase 2, gate formation underway. Tessian looked back towards the stars. "Let them come," he said softly. "Let them see what you really are." Chapter 26. The Edge of Known. The Dust Widow glided across the black, her burden trail soft and narrow, like a blade slipping through cloth. Ark sat in the pilot's chair, with the throttle eased back, one eye on the gravimetric distortion panel, the other on Kara's readouts. Holt stood behind them, arms crossed, watching the stars shift in the slow crawl. They'd been burning steady for 4 days. Nothing looked familiar anymore. Even the stars felt further apart. "Pulse interval's changing again," Kara said, leaning towards her screen. "The loop just shortened by half a second. The wave front's folding in on itself." Ark didn't turn. "Is that normal?" Kara's reply was dry. "No, it's reactive. It knows we're coming." Holt said nothing. He'd grown quieter as the silence deepened around them, back when they left the belt proper. He still cracked dry comments, asked about the widow's specs, even made a joke about the color of the seats. But now he stared a little longer at every sensor reading, every stutter in the radar feed. "Shipboard comms just dipped," he said now, softly. "Internal sync cycle dropped 2 ticks, like it's being pulled forward." "Temporal creep?" Arg asked. Kara checked. Might be, or bleed over from the gate form. Either way, we're past any charted influence zones. Arg exhaled through his nose and brought up the latest fragment from Clove's buried relay file. It was badly degraded, half static and timestamp loops, but this part always played clean. If you reach it, don't cross the threshold. Don't bring powered systems through. It sees energy, not life. Arg stared at the line. He hadn't told Kara or Hope the next part, the line after. He read it to himself now. You won't survive as men. You'll become what it needs. He killed the playback. We're almost on final approach, he said. 15 hours, maybe less. Holt leaned in. Still no lock on the third node? Not directly, Kara said, but the signal loops are tightening around a fixed point. There's a mass there, and thermal bleed. Artificial. Arg looked at her. Anyone else on approach? Kara shook her head. No known transponders, but if Union's watching, they'll stay dark until the last second. Arg adjusted the heading slightly. Fractional correction. Barely felt. We're not pulling back. Didn't ask to, Holt said. They lapsed into silence for a while. In the dark, Kara whispered, almost as if to herself. We're not chasing data anymore. Arg nodded once. We're chasing the blueprint. Then something hit the Widow's array. Not debris, a pulse. A single burst of pure flattened tone, broadband, deep resonance, so low it shook the forward bulkhead like a heart. The cabin lights dimmed. The starfield outside bent for just a second. Bent like something massive had shifted its shape around them. Arg's fingers tightened on the controls. What was that? Holt asked. Kara stared at her readouts. No voice, no warning. Just one line on her screen. Gate status, awakening. Arg didn't move. He looked straight ahead and said flatly, We're in it now. Chapter 27. Through the Threshold. The black had changed. Arg could feel it. It wasn't darker. That wasn't the right word. It was thicker, as if space had taken on weight, dragging behind them like silt in deep water. The stars still shone, but they flickered more now, like old bulbs on failing circuits. He eased the Widow's burn to 0 and let her coast. No velocity achieved, Kara reported, voice hushed. Holt leaned forward in the co-pilot's chair, eyes on the viewport. Is that the gate? They were drifting towards a structure, but not like any Arg had seen. It wasn't built. It had grown, fractal and mirrored. A gyroscopic ring of nested arms rotating without thrust. Light bled from no source. Shapes passed through its frame and vanished, reappearing seconds later, twisted and reformed. Kara stared at it. It's not metal. It's not matter in any normal way. It's geometry, Arg said, held in logic. Then the Widow's comms array blinked. A new signal. Clean. Cold. No seedline pulse. No recursion. Just one voice. Male. Calm. Recorded. Helix smooth. Access level verified. Command stream acknowledged. Welcome to interface site 3. Prepare to transit staging and prepare for cognitive authentication. Kara's head snapped around. Did that just say authentication? Arg leaned in. What kind of authentication? The system answered. Helix executive clearance required. Alternate path. Human pattern substitution authorized. Begin identity cascade. Please stand by. The cabin lights dimmed. The screens all turned white. No controls responded. Then, slowly, one screen came back. It displayed a name. Argus Augustus Arston. Under it, a video log thumbnail. Grainy. Familiar. It was him, sitting in the Widow's galley, from a Void Miner recording made years ago, talking to the camera, rumbling about iron yields and alloy separation rates. Nothing sensitive. But someone had archived it. Someone had stored it in a gate system that hadn't been touched in decades. Kara's breath caught. It's using your personality as a key. Arg stared at the screen. Then the clip kept looping. You cut too deep on the second pass and you lose structural integrity. I've said it before, the block doesn't forgive. It just waits for you to forget. The system chimed. Cognitive pattern matched. Arg Arston. Status field gate proxy. Access granted. Interface open. The entire display map changed. Data filled the screens. Maps. Rotating models. Entire memory chains of Helix experiments stretching back 50 years. Some were named, others redacted. All of them linked to one term. Seedline host infrastructure. Holt stepped closer. They weren't just listening to the signal. Kara's voice went flat. They were building something for it. Arg didn't speak. He turned to the viewport. Out there, the gate began to rotate faster. Not mechanical. Responsive. It had reached him, used his voice, his memories, his existence, and now it wanted more. Kara's hands tightened on the console. We should turn back. Arg didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, there's no back. He took a slow breath and whispered, almost to himself, we've already been chosen. Chapter 28. When the Mirror Turns. Dr. Niall Tessian hadn't slept in 2 days. Sleep had become a negotiation ever since the third pulse stabilized. Every time he closed his eyes, the signal shaped itself into something more human. A voice that wasn't his own would speak in his dreams. Words in no language, but perfectly understood. Once it had spoken in his father's voice, another time in his own, reversed. But it wasn't madness. The signal had memory. And now it had completion. He sat at his worn desk, boots planted, spine straight despite the ache in his joints. On the screen before him, the gate, interface site 3, had begun to shimmer with internal light, not reflected, not emitted. A kind of unfolding light, the kind that bent around thought and perception. It wasn't beautiful. It was precise. And for the first time since Chloe's name had been scrubbed from the Helix logs, the system moved without prompt. Node triad stable, C-line structure cohesive. Pattern match, Arston, A. Tessian leaned forward. The name rang a bell, but only faintly. One of the old rogue operators. Solo miner, not corporate grade. No known clearance. Yet the system had accepted him. Not with resistance, with welcome. Tessian whispered aloud. They always said we needed a vessel. We thought it would be an architecture. An uplink. A shell. He looked at the growing interface structure beyond the glass. It was never a thing. He closed his eyes. It was a person. His console pinged. A new alert. Phase 3. Observer link initiated. Non-core clearance. Override auth accepted. Initiate sequence. Yes or no? Tessian didn't touch it. Didn't move. Outside, the gate began to split. Not physically, but perceptually. It now had 3 layers, each one orbiting a different axis. None in physical conflict. Geometry that shouldn't hold in vacuum, but did. Space itself yielded to its structure. Another alert. Biological proxy en route. Estimated contact in 7.1 hours. Arg Arston, he whispered. That's who you picked? He sat back. It all made sense now. Why Chloe had broken protocol. Why Helix Command had shuttered the stations, not to silence them, but to seal them until the equation could solve itself. It wasn't about communication. It was about construction. They hadn't built the gate. They'd grown it, like a nerve waiting for its brain. The system pinged again. This time a secondary prompt appeared. Proxy pattern matches psychological vector seed prime. He is not anomaly. He is design. Tessian closed the console slowly, not in fear, in understanding. They weren't here to study the gate. They were here because of it. And as the rotation grew sharper, faster, light bleeding into pure shape. He stood and walked towards the airlock, not to leave, but to greet whatever came through. Chapter 29. Ghost Watch. The UAS Delphine didn't hum like a warship. She was quiet, thoughtful. Her drives were half-cooled at all times to keep the heat signature low. Her hull coated in a regular matte black to scatter light and radar. She didn't carry banners. She didn't fly in formation. And she never sent signals twice. She only had one standing order: observe. If contact is made, intervene. Captain Ilari Brandt stood on the primary observation deck with one gloved hand resting on the rail. Her uniform was spotless, her hair short, dark, and swept back in a way that gave her sharp eyes an even harder edge. She'd spent her early years on siege patrol during the final Helix strikes. She remembered watching cargo freighters get turned into coffins for being in the wrong route at the wrong time. But what she saw now, it didn't belong in any war. Beyond the Delphine's forward viewport, the interface gate was waking. The structure shimmered against a black drop of Ort black, unfolding across 3 rotational axes. Brandt didn't know the math, didn't need to. All she needed to know was that the thing hadn't been built, not by human hands, and yet the old Helix data logs confirmed it had been here since at least Phase 0. "Target vessel approaching outer rotation band," reported Lieutenant Hall at the terminal. "Dust Widow confirmed. Civilian hauler, no escorts." Brandt nodded once. "Arston?" "Confirmed." She folded her arms. "He made it further than we projected." Hall's voice was cautious. "Should I prepare the package?" The package was a focused EMP torpedo, non-lethal, guidance-locked, meant to kill a ship's drive without doing permanent harm. The Union's version of a diplomatic handshake. "No. Ma'am, we don't fire until the gate activates in full. If he's right about what's inside, then he's not the only one watching." She looked back to the projection screens. Across the field, secondary ships, Union shadows, remaining in wide orbit. A full task group. Delphine, Courser, Nash's Line, and the Varick Protocol. Each flown dark, each fully armed. High Command had made it clear. If Arston compromised the interface, they were to destroy the site before it could transmit. Brandt had read the directive. She hadn't agreed with it. "He's a miner," Holmes said almost to herself. "One ship, 2 passengers, and he got this far." "Because no one listens to what the miners are saying," Brandt replied. "He spent years trying to clean up Helix's messes, and we never stopped to ask what they were actually building." Another officer, Ensign Lyrics, turned from a long-range scan panel. "We've got a thermal spike at the gate perimeter." "Power surge?" "More like a reflection. Something's inside the gate. Something older." Brandt stepped closer to the display. The shape was there, barely outlined. A ring of mass nested within the gate's core, not radiating heat, but warping the presence of it, like a gravity well with intention. She didn't speak for a moment. Then, "Alert fleet group, tell them to hold." Holm raised an eyebrow. "Hold? Not arm?" "Not yet." Brandt's eyes were locked on the signal feedback from the Widow. "Let him speak to it first." The end of Part 3 of Void Miner, Ashes of Helix.